and a lot lies ahead. You will most certainly be the most scrutinized rookie in the history of the NBA. What will make a successful season by your definition in the rookie year?
You know, seeing our team get better every day. I think that's going to be the biggest accomplishment for us because last year we weren't pretty good. But if I feel like we get better every day as a team, that's going to be my biggest goal this year.
LeBron James has been one of the most scrutinized athletes in history. But if we're being honest, none of it is really deserved and it's just sport fans being toxic and trying to one-up each other. In that process, LeBron and all of these NBA legends just become collateral since they're the main talking point. And while I'm not going to act like I've been the most positive when it comes to LeBron, it's time to defend the king. For some respect on the man's name, because with the Last Dance documentary being aired every week, and with NBA fans being bored out of their mind and having nothing to do, Twitter and social media in general has become a LeBron versus MJ hot take battle zone. Today, we're going to be talking about LeBron James, some of the myths around his legacy, and just show some love to the man since, at least on this channel, I don't think he gets much of it. Before we get going, however, come on, I know y'all see the thumb. I know y'all do. Nothing was the same? Bron changing the game? Quarantine? Drake season? Bron Drake connect? Come on, bro. Come on. Y'all gotta drop a like on this video. Let's get this video to 6,000 likes because I know the crew has been killing it lately.
LeBron James, as great as he is, as gifted as he is, was not born with a clutch gene.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is 2020 and I know y'all got some time to research now. This idea that LeBron isn't clutch needs to be retired and hung up on the rafters because there's just no validity to it anymore. There just isn't. When you're an NBA superstar like LeBron, who has the ball in his hands at the end of games a lot because of how good he is, which in and of itself is a privilege only given to star players, when you've played in the league for 17 years, with nearly half of your career, your season has been extended by 4 rounds of best of 7 series, yes, you are bound to have hiccups and make mistakes throughout your career. But when you've been clutch the majority of your career, I just don't see how anyone can still look at LeBron and think he's not clutch. LeBron James has been arguably the greatest Game 7 player in the history of the game. LeBron James is 5-2 in Game 7s, and in those games, the man averages 35 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists on 48, 33, 79 splits. And that's just Game 7s. That doesn't take into account Game 6 of the 2012 Eastern Conference Finals, arguably his greatest game. Game 5 versus the Pistons in 06 when he scored the last 25 points for the Cavs in a W. Game 5 of the 2016 Finals. Game 6 of that Finals as well. Game 6 of the 2013 Finals. Game 2 of the 2015 Finals. I mean, just from how LeBron performs in big games as a whole in these high leverage games, there have been so many times where LeBron has stepped up to the plate. So many times. I won't even bother looking up specific fourth quarter stats, specific moments in the regular season, clutch defensive plays. Just know that yes, while 2010 and 2011 exist for LeBron, and while yes, compared to Jordan, Kobe, and Kawhi, LeBron has more of a tendency to pass up on crucial plays than shoot it himself, there really is no valid argument as to why LeBron should not be considered clutch. I would even go as far as to say that he is the second most clutch player of all time, if being clutch simply means just stepping up when you're needed the most. And speaking of stepping up, while I do believe there are a couple of players in history who have gone along and performed better with better talent, meaning that when they had great pieces around them, they made more of it than LeBron, in terms of making the most out of a raggedy crew, no one is better than LeBron, and I mean no one. Now, this is more of a modern idea, but there are 2 types of NBA stars. There are floor raisers and ceiling raisers. Ceiling raisers refer to players who add to a team's potential at their best, adding more to what's already a great product. Floor raisers, on the other hand, refer to players who are great at elevating a team to a level of success that they otherwise would not have without said player. I know there's a little overlap with those definitions, but take for example Draymond Green. You put Draymond on the Charlotte Hornets, he really isn't gonna do much. But you put him on an all-time team like the Warriors were, the level of defensive versatility he brings, his ability to play the transition game, space the floor better than other bigs and be a vocal leader is much more valuable to a good team than a bad one. On the other side of the spectrum, take for example Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson was a player capable of putting 30 a game and capable of carrying a team to the NBA Finals, which was much more than what they would have done without him. However, once you paired Allen Iverson with Carmelo Anthony in Denver, his defensive weaknesses and his ball-dominant nature became more of a problem, so much so that the Nuggets got better once they traded him away for Chauncey Billups, who was a better ceiling raiser than a floor raiser due to his skill set. Now, the best of the best are great at both, and I'm not saying LeBron is not a great ceiling raiser, but in terms of simply being a floor raiser, it is extremely hard to find someone who you can say does that aspect of the game better than LeBron. The one name that comes to mind is Hakeem, especially in 94 and 95, but LeBron has been doing this for a decade now. In 2007, he took a trash Cavs team to the finals, and regardless of how overrated his opponents were, for LeBron to do that at 22, fourth year in the league, is highly impressive. Also, if LeBron didn't drop 48 in Game 5, the Pistons would have had a 3-2 lead, and that could have changed the whole series. There is no way that the 2008 Cavs team should be competing with a 66-win juggernaut like the Celtics were, competing with them to the point that it had to go to 7 games and Paul Pierce had to match LeBron's 45 just to win in a hard-fought close game, Game 7. The Cavs had no business of winning 66 games the year after if it wasn't for LeBron. The Cavs had no business of making the finals in 2015, especially after K-Love and Kyrie went down. The Cavs had no business of being up 2-0 versus the Warriors in the 2015 finals when those 2 games were on the road, and he didn't have Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving got injured in OT of Game 1. The Cavs in 2018 didn't meet any juggernaut in the conference, but again, LeBron averaging 34, 9 and 9 that whole playoff run brought them so much more success than they should have if it wasn't for him. While yes, his ball dominant nature has drawn to him being criticized for not actually making his teammates better, as the whole turning him to Kevin Love meme goes, and yes, there is the theory that him trying to do so much on the court and being a high usage rate player can actually damage a team's ceiling because the system becomes so reliant on him. But it's those same abilities that he embraces that has turned him to being the greatest floor raiser of all time. I guess you can say it's a blessing and a curse. And speaking of a blessing and a curse, let's talk about that finals record. Because as we all know, LeBron is 3-6 in the NBA Finals. Now, there are those who criticize him for his winning percentage, and there are those who praise him for the amount of times he's gone there in the first place. Today, let's try to be as objective as possible. And the truth is, both numbers are misleading. Yes, his NBA Finals winning percentage is going to be low when LeBron in some of those years has to go up against great teams when he was on teams that, if we're being honest, are probably second round exits at best in the Western Conference. And because of that, yes, his winning percentage is going to be low in the finals. But on the flip side, the amount of times he reaches the NBA Finals is gonna be a little elevated when you play in a weak Eastern Conference, and that's just a fact. The likelihood of you advancing in the playoffs is higher, for example, like in 2009, when despite the Lakers and the Cavs both being 1 seed in their respective conferences, the Lakers had to play a 48-win Jazz team in the first round with Darren Williams and Carlos Boozer, while LeBron played a below 500, 39-win Pistons team with Rodney Stuckey and an old Rip Hamilton leading that team. Now, this is the extreme of it, and I could make a whole separate video just on the differences between the conferences, but long story short, yes, the amount of times he makes it to the finals is elevated because of the conference he's in, and in turn skews his finals winning percentage. Is that fair? Is that fair to say? Is that a fair analysis? Winning percentage is skewed, and so is the amount of appearances. Fair? Fair.
It can't be perfect. Don't try to be perfect. It's impossible. No one is perfect. If you make a mistake, you have to live with it, and then you have to be able to grow from it. You can't continue to make mistake after mistake after mistake and then think that you're going to be able to come back from that.
Look, I understand that blemishes on a player's career are there, and more often than not are taken into account in all-time discussions, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But I do want to say this. The greatest accomplishments in NBA history happen when a hurdle's passed. For a hurdle to be overcome, it has to exist first. For Jordan, it was the bad boy Pistons, and once he got over that hump, it unlocked a whole new Michael Jordan. For Kobe, the 2008 Finals was instrumental in his growth as a player, and that made that 09 and 010 championship even sweeter. For LeBron, yes, 2011 exists, and it's bad, and it's extremely bad.
Off turnovers, averaging 21 points off the Dallas turnovers.
But without 2010, without 2011, I don't think LeBron would have dominated the rest of his career the way he has without it. Now, LeBron has changed the game a lot. From empowering player movement to contributing to the small ball 4 evolution to simply showing another way of being dominant instead of the Jordan and Kobe way of how they did it, LeBron has had a lot of influence on the game. But in terms of discussing legacies, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like as if LeBron's greatness and how much he's climbed up the all-time rankings in the social media age, I believe LeBron's play has allowed the NBA community in general to be more critical thinkers, and that does include me. Because before, I would say 2012, it really was all about rings. But LeBron specifically has made us add context to things, put his accomplishments in a different light, which has in turn put other legends' accomplishments in a different light. Now, there are those who, in my opinion, sometimes overanalyze things or give too much credit when it's not really deserved. But in general, I think the discussions that LeBron's career has generated has educated a lot of people more about the game and how times and roles and situations affect a player's accolades. I also think he's definitely raised the overall importance of versatility and contributing to the game in more ways aside from scoring, and I know Magic and Bird do exist, but after the 90s, everybody looked up to MJ, everybody looked up to Kobe, people looked up to Shaq, people looked up to AI, people looked up to Duncan, but it wasn't until LeBron dominated that versatility gained as much importance as it does right now. Again, I'm not saying that it didn't matter before, but players like Giannis, Ben Simmons, Luka, Lonzo Ball, these guys looked up to LeBron before they looked up to Larry Bird or Magic Johnson because that's just who they watch. Look, I don't say this a lot on the channel because I do believe his fan base is very vocal and that they do praise him more than they really should. And I feel as if there's a lot of times that they tear down the legacies and careers of other players and bring certain people up just to make LeBron look better. But at the end of the day, LeBron James is a phenomenal player and is number 2 on my all-time list for a reason. The level of consistency and greatness he's shown throughout his career for as long as he has and as consistent as he has is just insane, and it still doesn't make sense. The fact that he's an MVP candidate this year is... why? How? I don't know. And honestly, I understand why my generation and younger generations view him as the greatest of all time. Some of the stuff he's doing is just unprecedented, and he has the hardware of an all-time great to back it up, and the brand of the game to back it up as well. Make sure to drop a like on this video. I mean, come on now, V-Soul's doing a pro LeBron video. Come on now, how rare is that? Watch these 2 videos on the screen if you haven't already. But with that being said, I'm out. Peace.